The humid air of Viron 6 clung like a second skin. Sweat pooled under Sergeant John McAllister's collar as he leaned over a rust-caked generator, hands deep in the guts of what once powered a military field hospital. Now, it served as a glorified coffee maker for the outpost's lone canteen. The jungle buzzed with alien life, birds that barked, insects that pulsed light instead of sound. John ignored it all. He was used to chaos. Used to the silence before the punch. Then came the laughter. Not human. John stood, squinting past the jagged fence line. Across the clearing, a squad of Dominion troopers lounged beside their transport. Glossy purple armor, adorned with emblems of conquest, shimmered like beetle shells in the twin suns. One of them held a standard-issue human rifle, Earth's old Mark IV, and bent it like it was a twig. The others howled with amusement. John spat. Bastards can't even tell a relic from a warning. Tilly, the young mechanic half buried in a pile of tool crates behind him, glanced up. They mocking our gear again? They're mocking our memory. The rifle snapped in half, flung into the mud like trash. The troopers moved off, their boots leaving perfect, symmetrical prints, so unlike human boots, always worn uneven, always shaped by the terrain. Tilly wiped oil from her cheek. You think they'll push it further? They already have, John muttered. Mock drills. Daily patrols too close. That's not protocol. That's posturing. They underestimate us. They always do. John turned and headed toward the supply shack, really just a corrugated shed with a biometric lock that rarely worked. Inside, under a moldy tarp and decades of dust, waited the real reason he stayed behind when command pulled out, a forgotten beast from a forgotten war. The door hissed open after his third try. The helicopter was barely more than a skeleton, its once sleek body now a rust-eaten mess of tangled wires and shattered screens. But the shape was unmistakable. UH-60 Black Hawk. Earthborn. War-tested. Forgotten. You're still here, John murmured. You old metal bastard. Tilly had followed him in and stood quietly, eyes wide. This thing flew? More than flew. It fought. This one? She hauled my unit out of a burning refinery under orbital fire. He stepped around the hull, tapping it affectionately. Bulletproof when it counted. Never left a man behind. But it's rusty. Ancient. Obsolete. Yeah, that's what they think. Tilly frowned. Can it still fly? John turned, his eyes cold. That depends. Can you rebuild a turret housing with nothing but scrap and stubbornness? I'm a mechanic, she said, cracking her knuckles. Not a magician. Good. Then let's defy some gods. 2 hours later, a ripple moved through the outpost. The Dominion's training exercise had been moved closer, this time, just outside the buffer zone. Coincidence? No such thing. John stood near the comms tower with Captain Darnell, the civilian liaison turned reluctant leader after Earth Command pulled out. The man wore stress like a second uniform. They say it's standard procedure, Darnell muttered, eyes scanning the jungle's edge. Demonstration of technique. Harmless, they claim. Bull, John said. That squad that snapped our rifle? That was Commander Threx's elite. This is a pressure play. Darnell sighed. I'm not authorized to escalate. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you. If they cross the line again, I'll respond. With what, John? A pile of rust? John smirked. Funny thing about rust. Underneath it? Still steel. Back at the shack, Tilly worked fast. The Gatling mount had been hidden beneath the helicopter's base, secured in a lockbox that hadn't opened in 70 years. The biometric lock recognized John's military DNA signature. The system beeped green. Open sesame. Inside sat a 6-barrel rotary monster, Earth's old 7.62mm chain-fed answer to air superiority. Worn, yes. But intact. Tilly whistled. This thing eats armor for breakfast. Used it once in Jakarta. Turned a drone swarm into rain. I need parts. Cooling coils, feed lines, half a turbine. I'll get you the rest. Whatever it takes. You planning to fly this yourself? I'm not here to watch history repeat. I'm here to make sure it doesn't. That night, the jungle roared with strange life, but it was the silence in the outpost that unsettled John the most. No laughter. No banter. Just waiting. In the mess tent, an old radio crackled with pre-war tunes, distorted and tinny. John sat alone, polishing a cracked flight helmet. On the table, a hand-drawn map of the outpost with red XS marked along the tree-line. Patterns. Infiltration points. Tilly entered, dirt-streaked and wild-eyed. I got the mount reassembled. She's not pretty, but she spins. John looked up. Feed works? Test fired blanks through it. Not jammed once. He stood slowly. Then we've got teeth again. As dawn crept over the horizon, a Dominion transport touched down across the field. 6 troopers exited in perfect formation. One wore gold trim, Commander Threx. He walked straight into the outpost like he owned it. His voice, when he spoke, was smooth venom. I come to observe, training discipline. After all, we must ensure all species are battle-ready, even those still clinging to metal relics. John met his gaze. Your people break rifles like toys. You planning to break people next? Threx smiled. I wouldn't waste my resources. Your kind breaks on its own. John didn't reply. He didn't need to. Behind him, the unmistakable whir of spinning blades started low, then built into a scream. The Black Hawk, scarred but standing, rose behind the compound, the sun catching its side like a sword unsheathed. The Gatling gun on its side tilted with intent. Threx's smile cracked. John's voice was ice. Some relics bite back. Viron 6 jungle perimeter, 0400 hours. The jungle never slept, but it hushed. That eerie stillness before a storm, John McAllister had felt it before, in cities burning, in deserts holding their breath. Now it crept through the alien trees, thick with moisture and tension. Inside the outpost, soldiers moved like ghosts. There were no alarms, no orders barked, just sharp whispers and the clack of gear being checked twice. They all felt it. Something wasn't right. John stood by the fence line, arms crossed, watching a faint blue glow ripple through the treetops. Dominion drones, cloaked and silent, skimming just outside the exclusion zone. They're testing the limits, said Tilly, approaching with a field tablet. I picked up thermal trails, full squad movements. They're circling us. They're not circling, John corrected, voice low. They're setting the board. The morning briefing had been nothing but noise from Federation reps about joint operations and solidarity drills. John hadn't even flinched. He knew what a facade looked like. They're doing a mock invasion, Tilly muttered, staring at the drone paths. But with live payloads? That's not training. That's baiting a reaction. She looked up. So what do? We show them what a real reaction looks like. John knelt by a stack of supply crates, pulling off a tarp. Beneath it lay Earth's forgotten toolkit, claymores, signal disruptors, jammers so old they still had analog dials. But they worked. That was the thing about human tech, it wasn't fragile. It didn't fail under pressure. It was made to survive people like him. Tilly, take the south edge. Plant these along the trail where they double back. Make sure they stay hidden. She took the bag without a word. He grabbed a comm unit from his vest and keyed in a channel. Darnell, McAllister. Confirm visual on the dropships? The voice on the other end was tight. 3 confirmed. Touchdown in 20 minutes. They say it's an extended maneuver and we're invited to observe. Copy. Keep civilians in cover. Don't give them an excuse. By the time the first Dominion fire team stepped into the open, the outpost was a ghost town. No lights. No movement. Only the low hum of the jungle, and the mechanical purr of alien exocets as they advanced. Commander Threx marched at the front, flanked by 6 elites. Their weapons were holstered, but the message was clear. This wasn't an exercise. It was theater. And they expected the humans to stay seated. John didn't oblige. He stepped out from a side alley, unarmed, vest unzipped, calm. Threx's eyes lit with amusement. Sergeant McAllister. I see you're alone. Symbolic, perhaps? John offered a flat smile. Just giving you the stage. Didn't want to steal your thunder. Threx gestured at the nearby guard tower. We simply wish to demonstrate cooperative field strategy. A visual show of power is sometimes needed to build peace. Funny. Back on Earth, peace didn't need orbital guns pointed at our homes. Threx chuckled. Ah, yes. Earth. So full of passion. So little precision. Behind John, the low drone of spinning rotors began, distant but distinct. Threx's smile froze. What is that sound? History, John said. In the control bay of the Black Hawk, Tilly toggled switches, fingers flying over analog dials. She wore a cracked headset, sweat glistening on her forehead. Hydraulics are green. Turret system primed. Gun feed stable. John's voice crackled over the radio. Start her slow. Let them wonder. As the rotors screamed louder, Dominion soldiers turned in confusion. They weren't trained for this. No aerial threat had ever existed here. Then the chopper rose. Like a specter, it emerged over the northern ridge, rattling, howling, alive. Painted black and half-scarred from decades in a vault, the Black Hawk didn't fly. It growled. The mounted Gatling tilted forward, motors warming with a hungry buzz. John walked past Threx casually, heading toward the landing pad. You brought a relic, Threx hissed. An insult? John paused. No. I brought a reminder. The Dominion troops opened formation, scanning the sky. Their HUDs scrambled, jammed by the disruptors Tilly had planted. Threx barked in his native tongue. Backup drones ascended, but smoke bombs detonated from the tree line, covering the field in gray haze. Cloaking sensors blinked out. That's when John made the call. Pass 1. Just a warning, Tilly confirmed. Roger. Low and loud. The chopper dove. Not firing. Not striking. Just screaming through the air 10 feet over their heads. The wind from its rotors knocked troopers off balance. Equipment went flying. A Dominion scout droid short-circuited midair and crashed into a support pole. The jungle itself recoiled. Threx shielded his face, cloak flapping violently. John stood his ground. By the time the chopper made its wide turn and returned to hover just above the outpost, a new silence had settled. This one wasn't eerie. It was stunned. Commander Threx, John called out, voice amplified over a megaphone. This territory is under human stewardship. Your demonstration ends here. Threx glared. This was within authorized protocol. You crossed the line when you brought weapons into civilian zones. I've recorded everything. So has the Black Hawk. He tossed the flash drive into the dirt. Footage is already queued for the Federation Tribunal. You want your reputation intact? Walk away. Threx looked toward his lieutenants. None moved. Above them, the Gatling tilted forward again, locked, loaded, spinning slowly. He stepped back. Very well, he said through clenched teeth. But this won't be forgotten. John smiled. I'm counting on that. As the Dominion forces retreated, the outpost slowly came alive. People peeked from bunkers, the silence broken by murmurs and disbelief. Tilly landed the Black Hawk gently. She jumped out, flushed and wide-eyed. You sure that wasn't a declaration of war? She asked. No, John said, walking toward her. That was a reminder that we're not prey. He looked at the skyline, where the last transport ship vanished into cloud cover. They laughed at our rifles. They won't laugh at this. Viron 6, 1,100 hours, jungle airspace. The jungle exploded with sound. Rotor blades carved through humid air like a serrated blade. The Black Hawk wasn't graceful. It wasn't meant to be. It roared like a metal beast, low and angry, thundering over treetops scorched by the morning sun. The Dominion had called this land pacified. Quiet. Neutral. Not anymore. Tilly gripped the flight stick with white knuckles, her headset crackling with wind and static. "You sure about this?" she called into the comm. John's voice came back, calm and razor-sharp. Sure as hell wasn't gonna let them fire first. A warning shot had been ignored. A high-speed pass had been dismissed. When Dominion armor crossed the southern ridge in formation, aiming railguns at a civilian depot, the time for restraint ended. John knelt behind the Gatling turret, hands steady as he flicked the barrel's safety off. "Talk to me, Tilly. Range? 600 meters and closing. Angle? 25 degrees downward slope. We're above their air sensor ceiling. Perfect." He pressed the trigger. The minigun spun. Sound vanished, replaced by raw thunder. The chain-fed monster lit up, spewing fire and lead in a single unrelenting stream. The treetops shredded under impact. Dominion camo dissolved into mud. Metallic shrieks echoed as armor crumpled under ancient Earth-born fury. Below, alien soldiers scrambled like ants, screaming into comms that no longer worked. The Gatling didn't discriminate. It didn't pause. It didn't care about their tech superiority or their centuries of doctrine. It only spoke in one language: suppression. Commander Threx stood atop his command rover, jaw clenched as he watched the battlefield disintegrate. "This is not possible," he muttered. An aide stumbled over, visor cracked and dripping with sap. "Sir, we've lost drone link Alpha. Target's jamming us. Old methods, irregular pulses." Threx snapped. "That's not a tactic. That's barbarism." The aide hesitated. "It's working." A fresh burst of fire raked the ridge, sending 2 Dominion gunships tilting sideways as their stabilizers failed. Above them, the Black Hawk banked into a vicious curve, sliding sideways before climbing. Inside the cockpit, sweat streamed down Tilly's neck. Warning lights blinked from half-working panels, but the flight held. John's voice rang out again. "Swing us left. Let's herd them back across the perimeter." Tilly grunted. "Got one flanking east. Mark it." Through a cracked viewport, John saw the glint of Dominion troopers attempting to flank through a dry ravine. One carried a shoulder-mounted fusion cannon. Too late. He fired again. A wall of rounds churned dirt into fire. The fusion cannon vanished in a burst of light and sparks. John exhaled through his nose. "Stay behind the trees. Force them into the open." Tilly twisted the stick, dodging a spray of plasma from below. The Black Hawk's tail brushed a tree canopy, scattering leaves in its wake. She yelled, "We're overheating! Push one more sweep. Then we cool off." Dominion formations collapsed. Their hovercraft retreated erratically, tripping over one another as the jammed signals misfired. What was meant to be a calculated assertion of power had turned into a slaughter. Threx barked into an emergency override. "This isn't war, it's a provocation. That relic breaks every Federation code." But the channel buzzed with static. He turned to his second-in-command. "Evacuate strike teams. Now." But the objective changed. The Black Hawks circled once more. John saw what he needed, their command rover backing away, escorted by limping drones and scorched armor. He didn't smile. "Not yet. Cut fire," he ordered. "Let him limp." Tilly eased off the throttle, engine whine dropping to a simmer. Inside the chopper, smoke clung to the cabin. Bullet casings clinked around John's boots. The weapon was steaming, but not jammed. Not once. He sat back, helmet resting beside him, and exhaled slowly. Tilly turned her head, grinning despite the soot on her face. "You do realize we just wiped out a Dominion incursion force using a relic from your grandpa's garage?" John raised an eyebrow. "Correction. My relic." She laughed, then winced as a warning blinked red. "Damage? A stabilizer's shot. We're dropping altitude slowly. Can limp home. Better than they'll manage." By the time the Black Hawk touched down near the outpost, smoke plumes still rose in the jungle. Medics rushed to pull wounded away from where the blast radius had crept too close. Captain Darnell jogged over as the rotors slowed. "McAllister! What the hell just happened?" John stepped off the bird, gear clinking, jaw tight. "We stopped an exercise." "With live rounds?" "They fired first." "We fired better." Darnell opened his mouth, then stopped. Behind him, Federation drones recorded everything: battle footage, casualties, trajectories. It would all go before a tribunal. John looked up at the sky, now clear, empty. "No reinforcements," he said. "They're retreating." Darnell nodded. "For now." Tilly climbed out, eyes scanning the survivors. Her voice was quieter than before. "They never expected to lose." John glanced back at the Blackhawk, its tail still smoking. The Gatling hung in place, silent again. "That's the problem with arrogance," he muttered. "It doesn't see history coming." Later that night, in a dim corner of the outpost, John sat alone with a datapad. Federation protocol forms blinked across the screen: charges of unauthorized force, violations of tech regulations, damage assessments. He swiped them all away. Instead, he uploaded the combat footage to a secure military node labeled Sovereign_tactic_proof_001. As it rendered, he typed a simple caption. "Old doesn't mean obsolete. It means tested. Sergeant John McAllister, Viron 6. He hit send. Then leaned back in his chair, staring at the dark jungle beyond. And for the first time in weeks, he let himself smile. Viron 6 outpost, 48 hours later. The rain fell like needles. Sharp, steady, cleansing. It washed over the burn marks in the soil, cleaned the blood from leaves, erased the footprints of retreat. But it couldn't erase what had happened, or what had been proven. John McAllister stood beneath a dented awning, sipping bitter coffee from a dented steel mug. Behind him, the Black Hawk rested on its landing gear like a war dog off duty, scarred, silent, and very much alive. Footsteps squelched through the mud. Captain Darnell joined him, carrying a weather-stained tablet. "They reviewed the footage," he said. John didn't look up. "And?" "The tribunal ruled your actions as justified within the bounds of immediate threat response. No sanctions. No reprimands." John grunted. "That's bureaucrat talk, for we can't admit we were wrong, but we need people like you alive." Darnell nodded. "Something like that." He hesitated, then added, "They're calling what you did a low-tech deterrence model. Command wants a full briefing on the chopper's systems. They're curious." John chuckled under his breath. "Now they're curious." Later that morning, a dropship touched down near the southern ridge, Federation markings, neutral gray. It carried no soldiers, no drones. Just 2 observers and a message. Commander Threx stepped out behind them, helmet off, expression unreadable. The rain didn't seem to touch him. John was waiting. They met in the clearing, no fanfare, no guards. Just 2 soldiers, one bruised ego, one scorched legend. Threx's eyes scanned the Black Hawk behind John. "That's the machine." John nodded. "She's got a name, but she doesn't tell it to strangers." Threx tilted his head. "Our fleet estimated that no kinetic-based aerial weapon system could inflict sustained disruption against Dominion troops. That assumption appears flawed. She didn't read your assumptions." For a moment either spoke. The rain softened. Then Threx said, "You could have killed me." "I didn't." "Why?" John sipped his coffee. "Because a corpse can't change its mind. But a bruised ego might." Threx's jaw twitched. "You humiliated us." "No. You did that when you assumed humans were too primitive to matter." Threx turned, about to leave, then paused. "You've made a statement. Loud, raw, and reckless. It worked." Threx looked over his shoulder. "Perhaps the Federation needs more relics." John watched him walk away. He didn't need to win the conversation. The sky had already said enough. That evening, the outpost was alive again. Power had been restored, the radar was back online, and the mess tent buzzed with something close to hope. Not celebration, no one here mistook survival for victory, but recognition. Tilly found John beside the Black Hawk, wrench in hand, grease on his sleeve. You know she needs a new tail rotor? Already scavenged one off a mining hauler. Tilly leaned against the hull. You gonna keep flying her? Until the sky forgets what fear looks like. She looked out across the jungle. They won't come back the same way. No, John said, tightening a bolt. They'll come quieter. Smarter. Maybe even respectfully? Let's not get carried away. They both laughed. Then Tilly grew serious. That footage you sent out, it's viral. Across the outer colonies, human posts are calling it the Gatling gospel. Some even want the specs. John wiped his hands and sat on the edge of the landing skid. It's not about the gun. Or the chopper. It's about the fact that we didn't roll over when the future walked in with shiny armor and smug intentions. You gave them history. I gave them a lesson. 3 days later, a Federation general requested a personal call. John declined. He sent a single message instead. Let the galaxy know. Humans don't fire first. But we don't miss either. He didn't wait for a reply. The Black Hawk was ready again. Fresh fuel. Clean belts. A new coat of matte black paint, hastily brushed but honest. No decals. No name. Just purpose. As John climbed aboard, Tilly handed him a helmet with a scratched visor. You sure you don't want to rest? He took it with a smirk. Rest is earned. Not given. Where you headed? He fastened the straps, powered the dash, and said, North Ridge. Heard some sensors tripped last night. Could be wind. Could be watching eyes. She nodded. Keep your distance. He looked back once before lifting off. Distance is a luxury, he said. Respect is earned. Then the chopper rose, blades spinning like prophecy. As it climbed into the clouds, the outposts below watched silently, not in fear, not even in awe, but in understanding. They weren't forgotten anymore. They were remembered. Loudly.